benefits of hard work, where every community can flourish in harmony with its environment and with other communities.
All these continue to be ideals to strive for, to work for.
The true hope and authentic change are within sight, and this can pave the way for a better government, one closer to what the Filipino truly deserves.
A new breed of leaders is on the horizon.
Leaders who are unafraid to meet people from all walks of life, to listen, to collaborate, to work together.
Leaders equipped with technical proficiency who study and learn and make difficult governance choices based on evidence.
Leaders who are able to discern right from wrong, who choose to do more and better.
Leaders with the passion, dedication, and commitment to serve the Filipino nation.
And you can be that leader too. The Ateneo School of Government cultivates young Filipinos to become professional public servant leaders who can help build the nation through good governance.
The Master in Public Management program is designed to develop leadership competencies by building technical proficiency, political acumen, and all anchored by the principles of ethical and good governance.
It emphasizes theory and practice, guided by cutting-edge research, ensuring relevance, groundedness, and application in solving real-world issues.
The core courses develop new perspective and innovative approaches on leadership, ethics, economics, public policy, and public governance.
The elective courses further enhance skills in formulating strategies and frameworks, providing an intensive interdisciplinary course of study for public managers and servant leaders.
The program also offers specialized tracks to address target areas of concern which the partner agency or local government unit is experiencing.
Local governance track. Harness the power of decentralized government to ensure local development. Health governance track. Build efficient and equitable healthcare systems that promote better outcomes. Climate change and environmental governance track. Understand present risks to engineer sustainable development in the future. Technology-based enterprise development track. Support scientific and technological innovation to promote inclusive development. Rural and agricultural development track. Find solutions to chronic problems of low productivity and unfair market practices. Energy transitions track. Widen energy access, improve energy efficiency, and move to renewable energy to empower lives and communities. National security track. Understand the complex external and domestic security challenges and learn to manage resources employed by the state to protect our lives, properties, and above all, our democratic way of life.
Our core faculty members and professors of praxis are multidisciplinary experts, well-respected practitioners dedicated to cultivating a new generation of leaders who can leave a positive impact on Filipino lives.
Recording in progress.
The Ateneo School of Government Master in Public Management program is committed to the mission of nation building.
By contributing to the formation of excellent and ethical public servants.
Who can elevate the standards of governance in the Philippines.
Our students and our graduates share in this mission.
And you can too.
Enroll in the Master in Public Management program.
And be a part of the government that our country truly deserves.
Lead with mind, serve with heart. Ateneo School of Government, forming leaders, leading reforms. The Philippines deserves a government that champions justice, sustainability, economic inclusivity, and democracy.
Where every child can study and be given the opportunity to fulfill their dreams. Where every sick worker can rest easy, knowing quality healthcare is within reach. Where every farmer can toil, see assets and productivity grow, and reap the benefits of hard work. Where every community can flourish in harmony with its environment and with other communities.
All these continue to be ideals to strive for, to work for.
The true hope and authentic change are within sight, and this can pave the way for a better government, one closer to what the Filipino truly deserves.
A new breed of leaders is on the horizon.
Leaders who are unafraid to meet people from all walks of life, to listen, to collaborate, to work together.
Leaders equipped with technical proficiency who study and learn and make difficult governance choices based on evidence.
Leaders who are able to discern right from wrong, who choose to do more and better.
Leaders with the passion, dedication, and commitment to serve the Filipino nation.
And you can be that leader too.
The Ateneo School of Government cultivates young Filipinos to become professional public servant leaders who can help build the nation through good governance.
The Master in Public Management program is designed to develop leadership competencies by building technical proficiency, political acumen, and all anchored by the principles of ethical and good governance.
It emphasizes theory and practice, guided by cutting-edge research, ensuring relevance, groundedness, and application in solving real-world issues.
The core courses develop new perspective and innovative approaches on leadership, ethics, economics, public policy, and public governance.
The elective courses further enhance skills in formulating strategies and frameworks, providing an intensive, interdisciplinary course of study for public managers and servant leaders.
The program also offers specialized tracks to address target areas of concern which the partner agency or local government unit is experiencing.
Local Governance Track. Harness the power of decentralized government to ensure local development. Health Governance Track. Build efficient and equitable healthcare systems that promote better outcomes. Climate Change and Environmental Governance Track. Understand present risks to engineer sustainable development in the future. Technology-based Enterprise Development Track. Support scientific and technological innovation to promote inclusive development. Rural and Agricultural Development Track. Find solutions to chronic problems of low productivity and unfair market practices. Energy Transitions Track. Widen energy access, improve energy efficiency, and move to renewable energy to empower lives and communities. National Security Track. Understand the complex external and domestic security challenges and learn to manage resources employed by the state to protect our lives, properties, and above all, our democratic way of life.
Our core faculty members and professors of praxis are multidisciplinary experts, well-respected practitioners dedicated to cultivating a new generation of leaders who can leave a positive impact on Filipino lives.
The Ateneo School of Government Master in Public Management program is committed to the mission of nation building.
By contributing to the formation of excellent and ethical public servants.
Who can elevate the standards of governance in the Philippines.
Our students and our graduates share in this mission.
And you can too.
Enroll in the Master in Public Management program.
and be a part of the government that our country truly deserves.
Lead with mind, serve with heart.
Ateneo School of Government, forming leaders, leading reforms.
Hi, good morning, everyone. We'll start in 5 minutes. We're just giving a few of our guests and colleagues time to trickle in, but we'll start very shortly. Thank you so much for coming and attending today's event. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the launch of the Philippine Observatory on Democracy. I am Iking Corpus. I'm the program manager of the Inclusive Democracy Program Workstream of the Ateneo Policy Center, and I'll be your host and guide for today's event. Before we begin, allow me to share a little bit more about the Ateneo School of Government, or as we call it, ASOG. ASOG is the Public Policy and Governance School of the Ateneo de Manila University, established to form leaders who are ethical, effective, and engaged in nation building. Guided by the spirit of servant leadership and a commitment to democratic ideals, ASOG offers academic programs, policy research, and capacity building initiatives that aim to make governance more inclusive, participatory, and transparent. Today's program is part of that mission to bring research closer to action, to empower our citizens, and to sustain meaningful democratic participation even beyond our elections. Before we begin, to ensure a lively and engaging discussion, we'd like to emphasize a few house rules that aim to guide us for today. The first, this is a moderated discussion, so please wait to be recognized before speaking. Second, let's maintain respect and openness throughout the event. Third, we will be taking photos and videos only for documentation purposes. This includes a Zoom recording for our online participants joining us today. Fourth, please keep your questions and insights concise so that we have enough space and time for others to also contribute their insights and questions to our meaningful discussion for the day. And then fifth, for our online participants, kindly rename yourselves with your name, institution, and location. And I believe you see an example on screen. So my name is Iking from APC, Manila. We're excited to have you as well as our online participants today as we present fresh insights on civic engagement and democracy in the Philippines. So without further ado, thank you so much for your patience this morning. Let's just get it started. And to officially open today's session, we're very excited to introduce the Philippine Observatory on Democracy, or POD consortium members, starting with special messages from the leadership of the Ateneo institutions that form part of it. So please turn your attention to the screen for our opening remarks from the Ateneo presidents.
Good morning. Maayong adlaw sa tanan. The Ateneo de Davao University welcomes this progress in the Philippine Observatory on Democracy project. This is a significant step in at least three ways. First, we now have a better knowledge on how democracy is understood and appreciated. Democracy is more easily proclaimed and promoted as a principle than practiced and protected as a commitment and lifestyle. It is steeped in complexity and nuance. It is deep in its dimensions and imperatives. Hence, it is no wonder that many leaders of great nations in the world today undermine it, weaken it, even destroy it. For what purpose? For the purpose of self-serving interests, for ego projected in a massive national to global scale, for fear of losing power, wealth, and privilege, for the insanity of greed and the foolishness of the need to dominate and be in control. And that is the second point. We need to fight those who destroy democracy and promote pro-democratic leaders in our countries and societies. Third and last, the Ateneo de Davao remains committed to educate for democracy, for dialogue, and for discernment, for the common good, for our vision of a humane, progressive, and peaceful Mindanao, Philippines, and the world. The Philippine Observatory on Democracy project is consistent with the Catholic Church commitment to synodality, aligned with Jesuit values on Christ-centered spirituality, conversation, and conversion, and basic fundamental respect for human rights and freedoms. This project is thus strategic and critical to us. To the project leaders and proponents, daghang salamat ug padayon. Maraming salamat po.
Greetings from Ateneo de Naga University. My warm felicitations to the Philippine Observatory for Democracy for the research project, for all the work done leading up to the launch, and for all the steps that are still forthcoming. It is very heartening to see the 5 Jesuit universities in the Philippines working on this democracy project under the leadership of the Ateneo de Manila School of Government, Simbahang Lingkod, and the JJXC. You know, recently I saw the results of mock elections in some Philippine universities. It's very heartening to see that among young people, among university students, you have a lot of progressive names, people that would be easy to support, people with track records, people with legislative experience. In contrast, you see the public opinion polls, public polls, where the top names are not necessarily people who are qualified to be in the legislature. And you have instead popular names, artists, public opinion makers, not necessarily people qualified to be in the Senate. But that's just one example of how democracy, while seemingly valued by so many Filipinos, is practiced very, very differently. And that's what we would like to understand better. Why is that, and where do we want to go? Here in the Bicol region, in the local elections coming up, we have a lot of established names running again, all in the family. But you also have some progressive names, people with track records that give us some semblance of hope. Through the Philippine Observatory project, I hope that we can understand democracy better, really get into the bottom, the depth of what our people understand by this big word, and work together towards something that will truly benefit the Filipino people. In church terms, we are this year in the Jubilee year. We are all pilgrims of hope, and we are all called to synodality, to walk together and as Filipinos. And we hope to do that very well through this Philippine Observatory project. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Buenos dias a todos. Here in Western Mindanao, democracy has never been an easy promise. It is something fragile, like trust, built slowly and sometimes broken. At Ateneo de Zamboanga University, we live this reality every day. We see the young who dare to hope in honest elections. We walk with communities who still fight for voice and dignity. That is why the Philippine Observatory on Democracy matters to us. It gives us a way to listen, not just to opinions, but to deep longings. The longings for fairness, participation, peace, and the simple dignity of being seen and heard. For ADZU, this is not only a project of research, it is a commitment to our mission to form discerning and compassionate leaders who do not give up on democracy even when it is difficult, even when it disappoints. We believe that truth, even when painful, must be faced if we are to build a future that is freer, more humane, and more faithful to the dreams of our people. We are grateful to stand with our fellow Ateneos in this journey, a journey of listening, of learning, and of walking humbly with our nation. Muchas gracias a todos. Dios te bendiga.
Distinguished guests, valued partners, esteemed presenters, and fellow allies in strengthening democratic institutions in the Philippines, good morning. I am honored to welcome you to the launch of the Philippine Observatory on Democracy, which is a platform for understanding the evolving nature of democracy in the country. The Philippine Observatory on Democracy is an initiative that reflects not only academic work, but also crucial civic work, grounding our electoral choices in truth and the lived experiences of our citizens. My gratitude to the Philippine Observatory on Democracy Consortium members for their unstinting affirmation, unwavering belief, and valuable contributions to ensuring the success of this initiative. Ateneo de Davao University, Ateneo de Naga University, Ateneo de Zamboanga University, Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan, John J. Carroll Institute on Church and Social Issues, and Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan. The Philippine Observatory on Democracy Initiative aims to shed light on the following key questions. First, how do Filipinos understand and perceive democracy? Second, how do Filipinos live democratic values and practices in their everyday lives? Third, what are Filipinos' aspirations for democracy and how does it contribute to our nation's development? And so it is essentially fitting that we launch the Philippine Observatory on Democracy today, a few weeks before Filipinos head to the polls. Elections are a defining feature of democracy. They reflect the choices our nation makes, the values they hold, and the institutions they trust. Now more than ever, we need to ask ourselves, what kind of democracy are we striving to build? As we prepare to hear the results of this study, it is worthwhile to reflect on the why behind the numbers and to consider how civic engagement beyond voting shapes our electoral choices and the democratic values we uphold today. Forming discerning, engaged, and committed citizens for the common good is part of our DNA as a Filipino Catholic and Jesuit university. The Philippine Observatory on Democracy is a concrete expression of that mission, and we are deeply grateful to our partners who share this vision. As we enter another election cycle, let us be reminded by our civic responsibility to preserve, protect, and where necessary, assert the values of democracy that we as a nation have built. Let us look ahead to the kind of democracy we collectively try to shape. As Franklin Roosevelt once said, democracy is not a static thing, it is an everlasting march. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. Let us continue walking together towards a free, fairer, and more compassionate Philippines.
Right. Thank you to our Ateneo presidents for those inspiring messages and reminding us why these types of discussions are important. So as the presidents alluded to, we're joined today online by our colleagues from Naga, Davao, Zamboanga, Cagayan, and all over the Philippines as well. And our colleagues from the Ateneo de Naga University Center for Local Governance is also live streaming this on their own official channels. So thank you everyone for joining us, even those who are online. Now, on to what all of you came here for. I'm happy to introduce our main speaker for today. Please welcome Dr. Philip Arnold Randy Tuanyo, Dean of the Ateneo School of Government. So Dean Randy is the Dean of ASOG and a former chair of the Department of Economics of the Ateneo de Manila University. A seasoned economist and development practitioner, he brings over 30 years of experience in public policy, academia, and civil society. He has held several leadership and advisory roles in institutions such as the National Anti-Poverty Commission, the Human Development Network, and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. His research spans labor markets, development policy, political economy, and inequality. Most recently, covering topics such as COVID-19 welfare impacts, political dynasties, and economic reforms under the Duterte administration. Dean Randy, the floor is yours.
Sige, thank you, Iking, for the introduction. Before I begin, I'd like just to acknowledge some of our guests here in this forum. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our former Justice, Tony Carpio. Justice Carpio, thank you very much for coming. Also, I'd like to thank our university officials, headed by the Vice President for Mission Integration, Benji Tolosa. Thank you, Dr. Tolosa, for attending. And also, this is a Jesuit project, so I'd like to also acknowledge the Jesuit officials who are here, headed by the Province Assistant for Social Apostolate, si Father Non Alfonso is in the back. Father Non, thank you very much for coming. So good morning, everyone. Today, I'm honored to present to you the findings of the Philippine Observatory on Democracy, or what we call as POD. The POD was established as part of the Global Observatory on Democracy, an initiative launched by the International Association on Jesuit Universities, the global network of all higher education institutions that were established by the Society of Jesus. So this initiative was launched in the IAJU conference in 2022 and was launched in response to increasing threats to democratic institutions worldwide, specifically the rise of authoritarianism, democratic backsliding, and the spread of disinformation. As Father Arturo Sosa, SJ, the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, would like to quote from the distinguished Uruguayan political scientist and public intellectual Moses Naim, there are three P's that Jesuit universities should actually address. First is populism, second is polarization, and third is the issue of post-truth. Therefore, this project aims to address the distinguishing characteristics of political problems in our society, not only here in the Philippines, but around the world, and to provide an observatory or watchtower that analyzes the critical issues of political participation. In the Philippines, as our Father President has said earlier, Father Babiap, the initiative is composed of 5 Jesuit universities: Ateneo de Naga, Ateneo de Manila, Xavier University, Ateneo de Cagayan, Ateneo de Davao, Ateneo de Zamboanga, working alongside with Jesuit social institutes such as the Simbang Lingkod ng Bayan and the John J. Carroll Institute for Church and Social Issues. Our aim is to deepen our understanding of how Filipinos view and experience democracy, especially in these challenging times, in order to develop new ways of political and civic education and deepen the consciousness of citizens on political participation, not only in their respective communities, but in our country. This year, as the Philippines enters another crucial election cycle, the POD aims to lead democracy conversations. We envision the POD as a flagship program for these consortium institutions, pushing forward the discussions that engage not only policymakers and the academe, but also the broader public. We hope that the insights we gather will feed into these critical national conversations and drive also more relevant and grounded perspectives on democracy in the public sphere. We undertake this initiative together with other democracy observatory initiatives by other Jesuit institutions in the world, including in Latin America, India, Spain, the United States, and Africa. Under this project, the study partners have agreed to undertake both a quantitative or survey-based method and qualitative or focus group and key interview methodologies for assessing the views of of Filipinos on democracy. So this actually survey is just one part of the study, and we're hoping that the survey will actually even motivate our existing consortium partners to undertake more studies. So in the coming months, now we're undertaking more deeper discussions. Well, this is sort of the first pass result of the survey of what we've did. Hopefully, in the coming months, now we'll have a deeper understanding based on focus group discussions and key informative interviews with leaders of different stakeholders. In Latin America, for example, they're undertaking this initiative by trying to talk with social and community leaders that are close to Jesuit institutions. But we've decided that for the Philippines, instead of just talking to our Jesuit partners, maybe we should first go and dialogue with a broader public, and then drill down on different stakeholders on our views on democracy. For this survey methodology, let me briefly explain the POD survey methodology. The survey targeted Filipinos aged 18 and above in 6 major urban centers: Metro Manila, Naga City, Cebu City, Cagayan de Oro, Davao City, and Zamboanga. So these are the cities where all the Jesuit universities or schools actually are located in, which will help us try to distill more deep, because these are already the area cities where the Jesuit institutions are located. So hopefully this will spur, the results will even spur them to undertake studies on democracy in their respective areas. We coordinated with a survey firm, the WR Numero, which conducted the survey from December 2 to 21 last year through face-to-face computer-assisted personal interviews using a randomized multi-stage household sampling method. In total, we had around, I think, 190 respondents, 180, 190 respondents, per city, and 160, respondents per city. And then, in total, it's 842 respondents were surveyed, yielding an average margin of error of about plus or minus 5.2%, which is close to the margins of errors in large surveys. To ensure accessibility, survey instruments were translated into local languages such as Bicolano, Cebuano, Chabacano where necessary. We are confident in the reliability of our findings. Well, the overall margin of error across the 6 cities stands at 5.2%. The city-specific margins range from 6.3% in Naga to 9.3% in Davao. These numbers affirm that our estimates closely approximate the perspectives of the urban populations that we studied. The margins of error are similar to those found for large national surveys undertaken by respected survey firms. In this project, we hope that we can promote democratic awareness and civic engagement among students and faculty and partners through the survey and monitor and assess quality of democracy and democratic processes in the Philippines. So the first question that we were showing is, are Filipinos satisfied with democracy? So turning to some of the questions that actually were asked earlier by Father Bobby, one main question that we asked was whether Filipinos are satisfied with the current state of democracy. We found that while democracy remains the preferred form of government, only 41% of Filipinos surveyed express a clear preference for it. Alarmingly, 37% say they do not care whether the government is democratic or authoritarian, and 19% actually prefer an authoritarian governance under certain conditions. These findings point to a weakening attachment to democracy among urban Filipinos, and also confirm findings in other studies in Asia that there is high general support for democracy as the best form of government, but a low commitment to it when it competes with economic priorities or regime performance. When asked whether Philippine democracy today meets their ideals, only 31% actually agreed. Half of our respondents describe Philippine democracy as far from ideal, reflecting a deep gap between democratic ideals Filipinos value and the lived political realities that they experience. So this begs a question: if urban Filipinos think that Philippine democracy is far from ideal, what then is their concept of an ideal democracy? So we asked this, so the next set of slides will show how Filipinos understand what is their ideal sense of democracy. So this is just a word cloud of the different responses that our survey respondents gave in the survey. So the interviewers asked them just one word. Now, what is the first thing that comes to mind when the word democracy is stated? So the first thing that comes to their mind is still kalayaan or freedom. Other strong associations include equality, peace, and government. These are followed by associations with the government, kalinaw or peacefulness, pagkapantay-pantay, equality. However, it is significant that negative associations also surface, with some respondents linking democracy to kaguluhan or chaos. This hints at a complex understanding with democracy, where liberal values are clearly associated but perhaps perceived as difficult or messy in practice. It is telling that many also associate democracy with chaos. This suggests that for a significant portion of Filipinos, democracy is both an aspiration and a source of unease. Filipinos in 6 cities recognize the essential features of liberal democracy. The top 3 most frequently selected elements are: first, respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, 59% of the respondents; second, the holding of free and fair elections, 45%; and third, upholding the integrity of the court system, 40%. Despite these strong ideals, perceptions of democracy in relation to historical events and key governance figures hint at a different story. The majority cite human rights and fundamental freedoms, the conduct of free and fair elections, and the presence of a credible judiciary as the foundations of a democratic system. These are encouraging signs that the core ideals of democracy remain intact in the Filipino political imagination. Despite these democratic ideals, perception of historical figures reveal contradictions. A majority of urban Filipinos believe that Presidents Rodrigo Duterte and Ferdinand Marcos Sr., leaders associated with authoritarian practices, had a beneficial impact on Philippine democracy. Specifically, Marcos Sr. and Rodrigo Duterte were viewed favorably in terms of having been nakabuti for Philippine democracy. Nearly half, 49%, mentioned that Marcos Sr. was good for the Philippine democracy, while a striking 62% did so for President Duterte. These proportions are significantly higher than those for other post-EDSA presidents, where only 30% expressed a similar positive assessment for other presidents. The regimes of both leaders, Marcos Sr. and Duterte, are widely documented for serious abuses of democratic principles. Marcos Sr. for suppressing civil liberty under martial law, and Duterte for widespread human rights abuses associated with the anti-illegal drug campaign. This raises questions about how democratic values are reconciled with historical memory and also with other strengthening institutions. Generally, also here in Asia, citizens often praise past authoritarian leaders or non-democratic regimes because of perceived order, and also suggesting a deeper cultural institutional preference for strong executive power. This paradox is further evident when we ask about the 1986 People Power Revolution. Only 33% see EDSA 1 as beneficial to democracy, while slightly higher numbers said martial law had a positive effect. It shows that collective memory about democracy milestones is shifting and perhaps fragmenting. While more than half of urban Filipinos identified respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms as the most essential elements of democracy, their perception of these leaders and people power suggests a disconnect. This apparent disconnect underscores the complex, perhaps contested, and possibly evolving nature of how democracy is understood, remembered, and valued in our country. It challenges us to explore the factors shaping this seemingly contradictory assessment, which may include generational shifts, the influence of contemporary political narratives, or differing interpretations of national history. We now go next to the key challenges facing Philippine democracy. Today, only 2 out of every 10 Filipinos, at least our respondents, believe that Philippines is a full democracy. About 1 in 10 openly admit they do not fully understand democracy at all. The predominant view for a majority of urban Filipinos, held by nearly 2/3 or 64%, is that Philippine democracy is a democracy with problems. 27% citing minor problems with democracy, and a significant 37% noting that it has major problems. Most respondents describe the country as a democracy filled with serious problems. So the question now is, what are these problems? No? When prompted to identify the biggest problems currently facing the functioning of democracy in the country, Filipinos pointed towards fundamental issues on governance and fake news. The top two concerns were corruption and the proliferation of fake news and disinformation, cited as problems by 67% of respondents. The closely related issue of misinformation was also identified as a major problem by nearly half, or 49%. Following these primary concerns, other significant problems highlighted include issues related to government efficiency, such as bureaucracy, 22%, nepotism, 21%, lack of credibility in institutions or leaders, 18%, red tape, 10%, and a perceived lack of transparency. These perceived problems with Philippine democracy underscore deep-seated anxieties about the integrity of the government and trustworthiness, crucial pillars for democratic legitimacy. These highlight issues of both political accountability and media trustworthiness. Survey results further reveal interesting insights when contrasting democratic satisfaction levels at the country, at the national, the national level, and the city level. So we were able to also to come up with statistics, at the city level. So for Metro Manila, Naga, and so on, and these are being further analyzed, by the different Jesuit institutions, in the country, and the reasons underpinning these as attitudes. While the proportion of urban Filipinos satisfied with democracy at the country level is relatively low, or 38%, satisfaction with how democracy functions within their own city is slightly higher. The higher proportion of satisfied Filipinos at the city level suggests perceptions that local governance are linked with overall democratic assessment. So we have a saying, all the politics is local, so all the democracy perceptions, are also local, highlighting the critical role of local governance and political systems. 47% of respondents are satisfied with democracy in their cities, compared to 38% at the national level. This suggests that strong local governance can still nurture hope and trust in the democratic processes, which also highlights, therefore, the importance really of local elections also as well. So voting for our mayors, councilors, governors, and so on. Another challenge is the deep inequality in perceived democratic rights. When asked about the reasons for the satisfaction or dissatisfaction with democracy in their cities, both Filipinos express polarized views. Interestingly, the main reasons for satisfaction for satisfied urban Filipinos and dissatisfaction for dissatisfied urban Filipinos actually mirror each other. Urban Filipinos satisfied with democracy in their cities are satisfied since they feel the tangible effects of governance through a good economic situation, clean elections, and officials who are corrupt. Conversely, urban Filipinos dissatisfied with democracy are dissatisfied because they also think that the officials are corrupt, low economic and societal mobility, and perceive indifference from local officials. These mirroring reasons on satisfaction and dissatisfaction suggest that lived experiences, particularly concerning economic well-being, perceptions of corruption, and interactions with local officials, profoundly shape attitudes towards democracy. It raises critical questions about the potential inequalities with democratic experience across different segments of urban Filipinos. Satisfaction and dissatisfaction are often shaped by similar factors, whether respondents feel that corruption is absent, the economy is doing well, and whether social mobility is accessible. These lived experiences frame how people judge the quality of democracy in their everyday lives. So what are the different influences on the democratic experience? So first, media plays a large role in shaping perceptions of democracy. While many urban Filipinos recognize the threat of fake news, only 37% believe that social media is effective in manipulating people. Confirming recent shifts in media trends, more than a majority of urban Filipinos get their political views from traditional media, TV, online media sites, and radio. But 77% of urban Filipinos get their political news from Facebook and 71% from social media sites, almost at par with the proportion of those who get political news from traditional media sources. This underscores the critical importance of understanding how information circulates and potentially how misinformation propagates within these digital spaces. This could point out to a low level of self-awareness about vulnerability to misinformation. While they are aware of misinformation, disinformation, the problem is that our respondents seem to also be very vulnerable to them. Despite these concerns, the overall assessment of social media impact on democracy among all Filipinos is slightly more positive. 36% stating it has been good rather than negative, which stated by 25% that states that it has been bad. Urban Filipinos also acknowledge social media's effectiveness as a tool for various forms of civic engagement, raising awareness on social political issues, 68%, keeping people informed about current events, 71%, providing a channel to potentially reach or pressure elected officials, 58%, and even influencing people to be more accepting of others, 57%. However, this is contrasted with the recognition of its potential, of media's potential to sow division, with 60% agreeing that it is effective in influencing people to be divided. Many see it as a tool to raise social awareness, and connect to policymakers. Yet there's also acknowledgement that it contributes to societal division. Interestingly, I think we also had a question on polarization, no? And well, unfortunately, I don't think we're not showing that slide no, in this presentation. So the results actually show no, that increasingly no, the notion of political polarization no, is actually real also in our country. No, that there is also growing specific division no, in terms of political views. Maybe we can show that result no, in future discussions. No? So what do Filipinos hope for Philippine democracy? When asked about their democratic aspirations, Filipinos prioritize social and economic rights such as social protection and access to competitive elections over civil liberties. What do urban Filipinos deem most urgently for the functioning of democracy today? They reveal that the prioritization of socioeconomic concerns and basic state functions over liberal rights, presenting another facet of the gap between abstract ideals and practical priorities on democracy. When asked to identify the three most urgent aspects, the highest priority was given to social protection, encompassing education and health, selected by 60% of our respondents, followed closely by clean and competitive elections, 54%, and ensuring economic rights such as employment, 49%. Protecting norms and procedures, such as ensuring effective and independent justice institutions, was deemed urgent by 39% of our respondents. In contrast, civil liberties encompassing fundamental freedoms like freedom of expression, academic freedom, and press freedom, which were identified as essential elements of democracy, ranked significantly lower in terms of perceived urgency. Only 9% included civil liberties among their three top urgent priorities for the functioning of democracy. Similarly, low priority was given to aspects like transparency and accountability, respect for minority rights, 7%, political freedoms like association freedoms, decentralization of power, and of systems of checks and balances. This pronounced emphasis on socioeconomic rights and electoral integrity over civil liberties and institutional checks suggests that for many Filipinos, the immediate tangible benefits and perceived fairness of the economic and social system hold greater urgency than the procedural and liberal dimensions of politics. This shows that a more substantive and social justice-centered view of democracy has been emerging among Filipinos today. Still, when given options to improve democracy, a strong preference emerges. 63% of Filipinos want a strong president backed by people, Congress, and courts. This suggests a cultural inclination towards centralized leadership rather than institutional strengthening or expanded civic participation. This path garnered significantly more support than alternatives such as limiting presidential power, the balance between executive and legislative branches, functioning institutions such as the government, education, healthcare systems, credible and efficient judiciary, and the emphasis on people's participation. So what's next? What does imply in term what's the civic engagement activities done by Filipinos? So what are the civic engagement events that they actually participate in? These findings reveal a pattern characterized by high levels of electoral participation, particularly in presidential elections, but significantly lower engagement in other forms of civic activities. Voting in presidential elections reported by high proportion of Filipinos at 86%. Participation dipped slightly but remains high for midterm elections at 82% and also for barangay elections. However, civic engagement beyond elections is more limited. Discussing with friends and family is reported at 63%. Proportions of urban Filipinos who participate in high-bar activities such as attending local meetings is only 42%, while joining rallies and protests at 18% are even actually lower. Furthermore, a sense of detachment is evident, with one-third or 33% reporting that they often feel that they are not really part of the community and its activities, not using social distance among Filipinos. It's becoming an issue in terms of their participation in politics. This pattern, high electoral turnout coupled with low civic engagement beyond elections, raise concerns about the depth and breadth of civic engagement, potentially hindering the development of a strong deliberative democracy, which entails the engagement of people as equal in shaping policies that affect their lives. So our call to action today is clear. We need to drive civic engagement beyond elections. Voting is only one part of the democratic process. Without deeper and more sustained engagement, democracy will continue in the country to remain shallow and vulnerable. A core objective really, so those are the main findings of our research, and there are actually even more, which we will share, in the coming months. So we've shared the data set with already our consortia partners, and hopefully some studies will also be released, at the city level also as well. Parang look further trying to sort of support the findings that we have this morning, and also maybe even trying to modify, or maybe to some maybe contradict what's happening also in their local areas. But we hope that we can share more of the results in the coming months. A core objective really of the Philippine Observatory in Democracy is to ensure that the results of the survey are translated into actionable insights through practical discussions. And that's the importance really of our social institute partners, the Simbang Likod ng Bayan and the Institute on Church and Social Issues. The Philippine Observatory on Democracy firmly believes that rigorous empirical research such as this deserves a vital public purpose, not only to diagnose, but also to inform constructive dialogue, evidence-based policy making, and ultimately collective action aimed at strengthening democratic life. These initial findings therefore represent not an endpoint, but a crucial starting point for a broader, deeper, and more inclusive conversation on democracy. So with this, the POD Consortia Associated Initiative the process of dissemination and discussion from regional pilot brown bag discussions throughout March and April. So we thank our partner, Ateneo de Naga, which held the brown bag discussion earlier in April, then earlier this week. We had last week, we held also discussions both at Ateneo de Davao and Ateneo de Zamboanga also as well. With stakeholders from academe, policymakers, and civic organizations. The next step is to move beyond the circles and bring the conversation to a wider audience through public fora such as barangay assemblies and community dialogues. This democratization of knowledge can only be achieved through continuous collaboration with civil society organizations and other media groups and other organizations. Translating insights into the impact requires supporting and amplifying initiatives that actively work towards cultivating a more informed, engaged, and resilient society, particularly focused on engagement that extends beyond the electoral cycle. So hopefully we will still continue this project. We're committed to continue this project even after the elections. In conclusion, the findings of the POD survey present both challenges and opportunities. They underscore the complexities and contradictions inherent in Philippine democracy, but also highlight the aspirations and priorities of Filipinos for democracy. Addressing these challenges required a concerted multi-sectoral effort. It requires fostering at what Pope Francis in the social encyclical Fratelli Tutti said, a better kind of politics, one that is truly oriented towards a common good, rooted in inclusive dialogue and encounter, social friendship, and a commitment to political participation. Thus, our work does not stop here. Let's all utilize the POD insights as a catalyst for renewed commitment, critical reflection, and collaborative action towards building a more robust and inclusive and resilient democracy for all Filipinos. We must bring these conversations to the grassroots, from barangay community dialogues, digital influencing, and other spaces where citizens gather, and democracy therefore must be nurtured at every level. On behalf of the POD Consortium, we extend our heartfelt thanks to all our partners, our fellow Ateneo and Jesuit institutions, civic organizations, academic, policymakers, citizens, many of you are already here, who believe in the importance of deepening democracy in the country. Your engagement and solidarity are therefore vital. Together, through dialogue, education, and collective action, we can strengthen democratic culture that our people aspire for. A democracy that is truly by the people, for the people, and with the people. So maraming salamat po. Let us continue walking the path of democratic renewal together.
Thank you so much, Dean Randy, for that enlightening presentation. I'm sure the audience has a lot of questions and a lot to unpack from that survey. Perhaps some new insights and other insights that we've perhaps felt from the ground or saw in other surveys. So we're very happy to have a panel today to discuss some of these and hear some of the insights and questions from the audience as well. To kick off this lively discussion about the results, we'll move on to this open forum. So we have with us a couple of very special individuals who have helped us throughout this process. So first, of course, Dean Randy, please take your seat over here. Thank you so much. Second is Mr. Carlo Abadines, Executive Director of the Simbahang Lingkod ng Bayan. So Mr. Carlo Abadines is the Executive Director of SLB, a Jesuit-led church-based non-government organization committed to the service of the Filipino church and nation through faith-driven political and civic engagement. With years of experience in grassroots organizing, civic engagement, civic education, engagement, and youth formation, Mr. Abadines has led SLB's efforts to promote good governance, social justice, and active citizenship. Next, we have someone all the way from Davao, Dr. Rosalinda C. Tomas, the chair of the Department of Anthropology at the Ateneo de Davao University. Dr. Ago Tomas earned her doctorate in anthropology from the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia in 2001. She received her Master of Environmental Management degree from the same institution in 1996. Prior to her academic career, she served as a student coordinator and organizer and later coordinated the university's social involvement program from 1987 to 1991. Professional experience also includes development work, focused on environmental management, sustainability, and social justice in collaboration with local governments and NGOs and indigenous communities. Her research interests include resource management, disasters, and climate change, as well as indigenous education. Since 2012, she has taught at the graduate program of the Department of Anthropology at the Ateneo de Davao University, where she currently chairs. And then last but not the least, our final panelist is Dr. Robin Michael Garcia, Associate Professor at the Ateneo School of Government and founder of WR Advisory Group. Dr. Robin Garcia is a political scientist, academic, and public affairs advisor. He currently serves as Associate Professor at the Ateneo de Manila University and currently the President of WR Advisory Group, a leading consultancy firm specializing in public policy, political risk analysis, and strategic communications. He, as we mentioned, also founded and currently is the chairman of that opinion research arm. From 2023 to 2024, he was a visiting scholar at the Perry World House at the University of Pennsylvania, and he was named an Eisenhower Global Fellow in 2023. Dr. Garcia's research interests lie at the intersection of political economy, international relations, and political psychology with a focus on Southeast Asia, the Philippines, and China. He earned his PhD in international politics from the School of International Relations and Public Affairs at Fudan University in Shanghai, where he was honored with the Dean's Award for Academic Excellence in 2017. He also holds a Master of Public Administration from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. And last, finally, but certainly not the least, who will guide us and moderate this discussion is Sir Leon Flores III, Professor of Practice at ASOG. So Sir Leon is a longtime advocate for youth empowerment, democracy, and inclusive development. He was the chairperson of the NYC, the National Youth Commission, under President Benigno Aquino III, where he advanced key reforms as the SK and juvenile justice laws. He also spearheaded the Abot Alam program and launched the YDI, or the Youth Development Index. He has co-authored several studies on youth political participation, contributed to the book entitled Building Inclusive Democracies in the ASEAN, and is currently the Secretary General of Acción Democrático. Sir Leon also played a pivotal role in MSME development as the former program manager at the DTI, where he helped reboot OTOP, or Auto, as we more know it, and launch Go Local. Today, he is an entrepreneur and co-owner of one of our favorites, Satiricas Baxilog, while serving as a professor of praxis at ASOG. So before I officially turn it over to Sir Leon, just a few guidelines for those who would like to ask questions. For on-site participants, we have 4 microphones or 3 microphones set up. Please line up at the designated microphones, and some of our ushers will help you. And when you're ready to ask a question, Sir Leon, our moderator, will call on you. Once you're called, please state your name and organization before asking your question. And again, we kindly request that you keep your questions brief and concise to give space and time for others. For online participants, you may send your questions to me, and then I will pass it on to Sir Leon towards the end of our discussion. So without further ado, Sir Leon, I finally turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Iking, and thank you for the shameless plug. Yes, there's a Trikas Baxilog at the Gonzaga Hall. But before we digest that, there's a lot to digest in the survey that was done. So maybe let's kick off and hit the ground running. Who would like to start asking a clarification or question on the survey or in the study that was presented? And then we'll ask some of the reactors here, right, to answer. Yeah. Based on, yes. Go ahead, ma'am. Again, please introduce yourself and your affiliation.
Good morning. Apple Oreta from the Department of Political Science here in Ateneo. And thank you very much for the presentation. It was actually very enlightening. This is just more a clarification and perhaps maybe an area where we can move forward in terms of the research. I'd like to be clarified on whether or not the study aimed to assess the effectiveness of the democratic political system in terms of addressing the expectations of the people, or is it just focused on the perception of people regarding the concept of democracy as a common concept? And I'm asking that because I was triggered with the survey where you presented Duterte and Marcos having a high percentage, no? And I think, and I'd like to I'd like to understand, or I'd like to interpret that as more as more as a manifestation of these two leaders as being able to mobilize the bureaucracy, no, in delivering results, and not necessarily based on how not necessarily people interpreting them as contributory to the concept of democracy. So I'd like to, again, my question is it more focused on the measuring the operationalization of the democratic political system, or is it more just focused on the perception or the appreciation of people regarding the concept of democracy? Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
Well, thank you for the question. When we started the survey, and that's also how, well, this project now started with the Jesuits in Latin America, looking at citizen perceptions of democracy. It's really just to gauge what people's views are. Parang we, yung assessment, parang when we were designing the survey, or identifying the survey questions and designing the survey objectives, we really didn't think that we would go on in assessment. And I think I think that would still be a second part, no, of the study or this project. Kasi we just wanted to get a gauge of what people actually, how people view democracy, how they actually, as Father Bobby, no, in his introduction said, what people viewed about democracy, what were their important characteristics, no, for them, democracy is, no, and how do they perceive, no, democracy actually in terms of how maybe to some extent, or how do they participate, no, in 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 um, in in actions, no, that could further actually could further the democratic space. So essentially, I think it's just a first pass. Hopefully, in the coming months, we'll have more studies that are undertaken with regards to maybe looking at maybe why. Because even the study raised a lot of questions. No, for example, I think one question that you we have, no, is that while there's a very strong preference, no, for at least, no, plurality preference for democracy, one issue is that it doesn't seem to be there's no it's not uh, clear how how the democratic values and norms operate, and therefore that's a question, no, that we have. So even if they prefer, democracy as a form of government, but these values and norms are not that are part of democracy are not preferred. So this raises a question really of how democracy will evolve, no, how participation will evolve, no, in the coming years.
Any other reactor would like to comment? So more of overall perception. Yes, Sir July Tiang.
Gandang umaga po. July Tihanki from the other university in Taft Avenue. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Ateneo Consortium for this very important and critical project at this point in our nation's history. And again, I'd like to congratulate my dear friend, Dean Randy, for leading this. Just as a reaction to the reaction of my other colleague, Dr. Apple, the results of this survey actually lines up with the historic results. If we trace all the surveys on democracy, not only in the Philippines, but also in the region. No? If you look at the Asia Barometer survey that's been conducted for almost a decade already, we already see the trend and the pattern. And if you look way back and compare the results of democracy surveys conducted by the two pioneer survey firms, SWS and Pulse Asia, we also see the pattern. No? So for example, if you look at SWS, all questions asking about the former dictator, the negative sentiments were extremely high immediately after EDSA. But as we, historically move away from that period, the favorability factor with regard to the dictatorship and the role of the former president Marcos, has become more favorable. So this is framed also within what Adele Webb and Marco Garrido calls democratic ambivalence. So as a way moving forward and as a response to that puzzle of how come at this point the ordinary people perceive autocrats like Marcos and Duterte as having contributed to Philippine democracy, perhaps we should also question our conception of democracy, right? We should revisit the concept of democracy and how Filipinos look at democracy. Because right now, there's a raging debate. If you go down south in the Visayas and particularly Mindanao, they have a different conception of democracy. And they have a different appreciation of Duterte's role in Philippine democracy. So it's something that as academics, we have to distance ourselves emotionally. We might have our own preferences or our own biases. No? But as intellectuals and as academics, we look at the data and we look at both the quantitative and the qualitative. So one way of looking at it would be democratic ambivalence. Particularly in the region, Asia has not been fertile ground for democratic values, although in the Philippines, we are a cut above the rest because we prefer democracy but we also consider it as being messy. And our version of democracy is democracy guided by a strong arm. So whether that's still democracy, that's part of our continuing conversation. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Dean. Yes, sir.
Benji Tolosa, Vice President for Mission Integration, also political science professor, Ateneo de Manila. I was struck by, I think when you pointed out, you mentioned it both in your presentation and I think even some qualifications, so that it seems there's a recognition of that there is misinformation, disinformation, and yet people don't attribute it to social media. No? That there is a positive view of social media. I don't know whether you've had a chance to look further into this and try to explore it further, where that is coming from and what they see as the source of the disinformation, and whether there's also some kind of self-reflexivity that their very views on democracy may be a product of the misinformation, disinformation. I think that's an interesting thing that we need to probe into further. Thank you.
So thank you again for the comments of Dean July, and hopefully parang we'll continue this work in our Participate project na parang trying to update, and also for the comments also of Dr. Toloso. No? Last night, no, I just was reminded because Dean July talked a little bit about many of the findings confirm yung Asia Barometer studies. Now I was looking at some of the results of the different waves of the Asia Barometer study, but I think contrasting the Asia Barometer to this study a little bit, I think what we've also found out is exactly what you said. No, in the other studies, no, looking at is that this highlights really a paradox. No, I think our respondents, Filipinos, are really aware of misinformation and disinformation, but the issue really is that it doesn't even reduce their vulnerability to it. So that's an issue I think that we want also to highlight. So the theme of the Ateneo de Naga Forum that was held in first week of April was on that topic, on the theme of fake news, disinformation. Misha, our POD project coordinator, was there in the forum. So I don't know if you also want to share some of the highlights in the discussion in the Ateneo de Naga Forum, whether this issue really of awareness versus being vulnerable to fake news, also was discussed. But yes, certainly that's a question that we'd like to also to go into. Misha, I don't know if was there anything in the discussion? Sorry to ask you out of the blue.
Thank you po for the question and thanks din Randy. So I was part po of the panel din dun sa social media brown bag. So we presented these results but there were reactors na focused on social media. So meron din parang actually from the government also. Most of the people there or the participants were students as well. So I think in the main question talaga is medyo forward-looking po yung mga tanong. It's more on, ano ba yung magagawa? We know these insights already and like as a participant or as a, as a social media user, ano yung next step, if ever? And I think yung nakikita ko po is some of the government officials there were talking about na they're trying to put guardrails already. So they're trying to do some forums. They're trying to use social media in a better way, like by conducting these brown bags also in their communities. But I don't think hindi po nasa scale up siya. So I think yun po yung dissonance ngayon, no? So even if we're trying to do these forums, parang the scalability of these initiatives are the question. And as we've seen in the data, almost as big na po as TV yung social media. So I think that's where we ended mostly the discussion, no? Like the scalability of these initiatives on social media.
Thank you everyone for the questions so far. I'd just like to go back to the question of Professor Apple, and also just growing from the answer of Dean Tiangki, who graciously volunteered an answer on democratic ambivalence. But if we go back to the data, actually, that was presented by Dean Randy, there's several things that that we can glean from it to answer the question of. But so the POD, it seems to me when I read it, actually does answer the perceptions about democracy and the expectations for how democracy can be improved in the Philippines. And several data points might be interesting. Number one is it does suggest that the urgent issues that democracy needs to address is delivery of social services and economic output. So based on that data, it's really output legitimacy. It's what you can get from democracy. It's solving the material depravity of Filipinos that matter for them, and they connect the solution to material depravity to democracy. So it's output driven. Number two, there's also this procedural aspiration where they ascribe democracy to fair voting in elections. So at least that we have. But if you look at those two data points on solving material depravity and sort of the procedural expectation for democracy, you don't find the support for values as much. No, it did say human rights earlier, but the biggest outputs that are being expected by people are more material things rather than values, no, that we hold dear, such as human rights and things like that. And yeah, they feel that also the support for Marcos and Duterte actually is not surprising because in the same data here, it says that democracy will be better with strong executive leadership, and less accountability, checks and balance from institutions such as Congress. So it does. Maybe there are undercurrents of, in Asian democracies, there's support for strong leaders. It's more hierarchical rather than flat, right? So that has been a debate for decades now. I'm sure a lot of the political scientists here know that. And yeah, fourth, maybe just the issue in fake news and social media, because it is the biggest source of sort of information. And as Dean Randy pointed out, they might be aware of that, but they're not. But they're still susceptible to that. But there's a social psychological term that maybe I'd like to throw in. It's the idea of the availability bias. No, ibig sabihin, because we're boundedly rational individuals, tend to believe the information available to them right away. So that's what the algorithm tells you. Sort of it puts you in a bubble. No? So it's that sort of concept that I also want to say. So maybe these four things is already in the POD data, and it does talk about the expectations for democracy and how they perceive the current state of Philippine democracy.
Thank you, Doc Robin. Yes, go ahead. Sure, Ms. Apple.
Maybe just a recommendation for future studies, no? Because I noticed that the areas that where the studies were conducted are on all conflict areas. So Naga, Davao, Manila, Zamboanga, these are all conflict areas. But I think that's not included, or that perception is seemingly absent, no, in, maybe I'm wrong, no, but I don't know the entire data set, but
Sorry, ma'am.
it
How do you
seems
define conflict areas?
there are armed groups that are present in the locality, and the presence of these armed groups actually have a direct impact or direct effect on the capacity of the bureaucracy in delivering services. No, this is just connected to what Robin mentioned. And I suppose that maybe in the future, that lens should be included in the discussion, because my sense is that the Filipinos' perception of democracy is really anchored on the capacity of the bureaucracy to deliver services. No? So the frustration of people regarding the democratic political system is not so much because of the notion, but more because the bureaucracy actually fails, no, to deliver the expectations of the people. So maybe future studies, no, we can pursue that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Apple. Yes, please. We can keep this as free-flowing as possible. Al. Please, those are...
Sorry. I'd just like to add, no, I agree with Robin, I agree with Apple. It's actually about performance legitimacy and what makes Singapore as the proof of concept that authoritarian works is that if you go to Singapore, we can see the evidence immediately, right? But it's not a fully consolidated democracy. It's not even a democracy, although it pretends to be one, right? So for a typical Filipino, we will all want to be like Singapore. There's order, everything works, diba? Uh, you know, the train comes on time, etc. No? So it's really about output, outcome, no? And right now, even within the liberal circles, no, there's a shift, no, of focusing too much on markets and more on abundance, no? And this is what they call abundance liberalism or abundance economics, no? In which this is not boyabunda. Abundance economics is really about output, outcome. And I think the only remedy to fake news, disinformation is if we raise the quality of life of our people to the point that they can have autonomy to decide, and that is really the lifeline, the lifeblood of any functioning democracy. So yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead. Wait.
Let me also highlight the point that came out from the survey, that I think there's greater satisfaction in terms of yung local, yung city level democracy rather than democracy as is
National.
practiced at the national,
National.
so grassroots democracy. So very strong. I think, as you said, no, yung you said, no, in July, no, about the perceived performance really of democratic leaders or political leaders, no, is very much important. And since we don't have the political parties that try to link the national and local now, no, so very much important now in how people's perceptions of what democracy is, what the performance really of their local leaders are, no. So the so I think that's something that maybe we can also to think about, that politics or democracy is something that's now, because in the absence of institutions that link the local and national, no, is important really of local level democracy, politics.
Dean, if I may add a bit, it's more of a question for the group or for the panel. Like, so if we're talking about performance legitimacy here, so is it safe to say that those in the winning circle, their electionists for senators in this election cycle, are they perceived to have delivered on their performance expectations, or is that how? I'd like just to raise that in light of the coming election, because I know si Dean is itching to answer that, but I'm just curious if it so happens that, Filipinos are looking at performance, then is it safe to say that we keep voting people who we perceive to be performing or not? And anyone can answer from the group. Go ahead, ma'am.
I think it will be both, no? Both in terms of performance and at the same time affiliations with families, especially at the local level, no? Because at the local level, of course, we always have a more dynastic influence considering the leadership, including, for instance, in Davao City. Performance, for instance, even in Davao City, in some of the surveys in schools, for instance, some of those who will be among the top 5 would be like Bongo, who is touted to be as Mr. Malasake. That's his framing. And then we also have De La Rosa in terms of peace and order. But there are also other candidates who are rising up more in terms of the progressive, especially among the students like Espiritu, Mendoza, Bamakino. But in many ways, at the local level, I can speak for Davao. A big influence is of course the political landscape, no, the history, the context of the area, and therefore people in a way have a lot of preference for local flavors, even at the national level. So many of them will also push for people whom they actually relate with, and are also related to certain politicians that are associated with people at the national level.
Ma'am Oga, I don't mean to put you on the spot also, but I know it has not been shared. But one of the findings, and we haven't shared it now, but in Davao, for those respondents, medyo mataas yung hindi daw nakabuti ang Duterte compared to the other, ano. Is that a shifting of the winds, or I don't know, there's some to be an irony there when we found na medyo marami-rami yung, at least for the Davao respondents, no, that they're saying na hindi nakabut, mas marami yung hindi nakabuti generally. Oo. As a percentage of compared to the other presidents. Any observation on the ground? And don't worry.
Yeah.
Oo.
Well, from my own personal experience,
Yes.
we're very polarized in Davao, including in our own community. People will always have a particular position in terms of who they want as leaders. But a big part of the shaping and the influencing of how people look at things is actually the context of the area. We know certain politicians have been there for decades, including up to now. And therefore, and especially in terms of performance, people see the performance at the local level and they appreciate that. And they have a lot of personal and relational uh, affiliation. So it's very difficult. While it's seemingly on media, probably it will be projected that there's a lot of support. There are also a number of people who have different positions, no? But of course, because Davao is a stronghold, a political stronghold of certain families, we usually associate it with only as such. But there are really other groups who think otherwise. But it's very difficult because social media in a way still influences many of the positionings of people, know how they look at things, and even if they don't actually filter the information.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Sir Manuel Carlo.
Maybe I'll just add some points. Maybe in SLB, symbolic of the is coming from a perspective of, I guess, doing political education on the ground. No? So just a few things that I think might be interesting to look at, especially the question right now, no, on yung mga senators. I think, again, it's a mix, but I think part of it really is still connected to the idea of the delivery of the services. It falls down to that, I think. When you think about the Tulfos, for example, number 2, number 3, and I think it's the delivery of justice in a weird way, no? Parang ganun, no? So when your bureaucracy fails to deliver in certain ways, the politician steps in, no? Maybe the other thing I'd like us to think about also is maybe the hidden patronage linkages of these national candidates. Because to be honest, when I was asking questions on the ground, we also are trying to understand how polarization is happening on the ground when we do our informal poll ed, no? And what's happening is not, it's connected to personalities just because it's connected to patronage. Parang ganon. So, anong nangyayari po, people would say na if we don't vote for this candidate, si barangay captain, hindi na siya makuha ng services galing kay mayor kasi si mayor sinusuportahan niya tong mga tao na to. So, it really goes into from a national to local patronage system, no? And so, iniisip ko minsan, baka connected nga yung senatorial perceptions. One, on national projections, like yung Malasakit Center, yung kay Tulfo, etc. But maybe on the something we may not be fully seeing is the patronage linkages, yung mga chismisan on the ground, no? Na baka hindi lumalabas sa social media, but we do understand that the linkages are very clear, no? From national politicians to local candidates. So just something to think about then for us, no? Just now on the comment pala on information, no, on social media, I really like that question because I do think, and I have a bit of a psych background, no, and I've been wanting actually to have political psychologists weigh in actually on a lot of the research because I feel like nangyayari po talaga, people overestimate their confidence to understand their own biases, no? Parang feel nila sila talaga yung tama, parang gano'n, no? And I go on the ground and I tell them, alam nyo, may bubble kayo, no? And i-acknowledge po natin, bubble yan. But most of them will be defensive. Hindi, lahat ng mga tao na hindi naniniwala sa opinion ko, disinformation. Kaya ang lakas ng problema, disinformation. But they would never acknowledge themselves to be part of a weird bubble themselves, no? And I think that disconnect is really something we have to look at. Maybe a question for us to think about lang din is how we do our educational efforts on the ground then, maybe just moving forward. And I think that will be a big question for us kasi I think there is a really concrete divide between what leaders think democracy is, yung mga elite, may elite decision makers, meaning for example, your priest, for example, for us in the church situation, yung mga pare, yung mga parish pastoral councils, they're very different from what the people on the ground actually think about what democracy is. And we've seen it in our political education. Iba yung nilalabas ng mga tao kung kausap namin grassroots versus yung nilalabas ng etong demokrasya, human rights, etc. But again, I think this affirms the survey that there is a disconnect. And if the elite people who are deciding what political education we need to do not understand ano yung hinahanap ng mga tao on the ground, which is democracy that delivers, then I think we'll have our problems in voters education, political education. And this, I think the POD study is a very good starting point for us to be self-reflexive, even for our own activities as well.
Yes, sir. We have one.
Hi, good morning. I'm EJ Ofilada from the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies here at Ateneo de Manila. And I would like to respond to the previous point. So I teach a course here, it's called Imagining History. And one of the readings I assign is, as mentioned earlier, Marco Garrido's research on EDSA Tres. So for the students who may not have been born when that happened, EDSA Tres was a response to the EDSA 2 that ousted ERAP. It was ERAP supporters also mobilizing on EDSA in support of ERAP. And what he talks about is, for the people who were part of that EDSA 2, who were against ERAP, this EDSA 3 was anti-democratic. Diba? Why are you mobilizing in support of a leader who's been proven to be corrupt? But what Marco found interviewing people who were part of EDSA Tres was they interpreted their participation as an exercise in democratic values. We voted for this person. We are going out to the streets to support him. And just in connection to that, I'm curious if it's possible to further break down the data because we've all noticed that there's this possibility of different conceptions of democracy, as just mentioned by Carlo. Is it possible, for example, to take the subset of people who agree that Marcos and Duterte were nakabuti sa demokrasya, see what their priorities are, and compare that to the other side of people who did not see them as nakabuti sa demokrasya, and see if we can, sa level pa lang na to, before doing another stage, see different conceptions of democracy. Or basically what I'm asking is, aggregated ba yung data or can we get it on a per participant level?
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. Yeah, parang there are many cross tabulations. I think that we haven't yet done. No, so for example, sex, gender differences. No, or initially I think parang we already had some discussions on regional variations. Kasi iba naman yung regions. But yeah, I think your point of trying to distinguish parang what are the preferences no in terms of or what are the for those who supported what we say are the authoritarian leaders no parang what for them are important characteristics of democracy versus or not. So yeah, that's something that's what we can do.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Mika. I'm a graduate student in the Department of Economics. And as an economics student, just adding with this question about the preferences of specific people. I'm just wondering kung ano yung income level ng mga tao, education, and as mentioned, yung gender and their employment. And so I think this is a great starting point also for further studies when it comes to economics, because maybe their perception of democracy also correlates with how inequality is perpetuated. And so, or their income level as well. And so I just want to know if there are further data when it comes to this. And I also understand because with our department that several students are making thesis about this, about specific subsets of people. For example, males who are from the lower income, for populist presidents, and so maybe this data is skewed to a particular subset of population.
Yeah, maybe I don't know if you want to answer about the income question.
I guess. Hello. So I think great question. No? I think madami yung interested talaga in segmenting people. So I'm in charge of like the data analysis statistician at the Ateneo Politics
Pierre
Center.
Balar.
Yeah. So definitely interesting talaga yung insights like may differences ba sa income and their perceptions of understandings of democracy. And I think what's great with POD is that we didn't just settle on demographics. Like we had questions on household income, we had questions on their level of education, but we also went beyond. We asked questions specifically on on inequality. Like, feel mo ba may unfair or hindi fair yung wealth distribution in the Philippines? May ano ba, may regional differences ba? May concept ba of Imperial Manila? But unfortunately, at this point, we haven't looked at the crosstabs yet. And I think that is yung mga future steps ng POD to look at further and invite other researchers to look at the data and form hypothesis. So, yun.
But we don't have an income variable, no?
We have the
we have. Okay, so good to see.
self-read, yeah.
Yep, I'm reminded lang of parang this, just putting on my other hat, no, in the Human Development Network. When we published parang our last report in 2020-21, we included parang sort of a box in the report on written by Jean Caraos of ICSI. And we got data from the World Value Survey. I think when we asked her to write that box in the report, parang we were looking at what were the views on preference for a political leader, whether they wanted a democratic leader who does consultation or a leader who's a strong leader who makes decisions without needing to go to Congress. And an interesting point, and I don't know if we can tease out this out also from our survey that we had from the World Value Survey, was that it was really the upper income groups who had a preference for strong leaders who don't need who don't need to go to Congress to get their sent for decisions. And we interpret, I think Jing interpreted that as, because I think for the upper income groups, parang there was even an increase from 2002 to 2012 that these upper income groups had a preference for order, di ba? Parang ayaw na yung, they want faster decision making. And I think that's also the reason why you had a preference here, no, for many of our respondents, no, for strong leaders. That's what
I think po kasi the correlation is very important here, especially when making the studies. Kasi when we're presenting these kind of surveys, when variables like that are missing, people might think that this is a generalized view. Although it is true, there is a sample, but lacking that kind of nuance for, are these male respondents or are they mostly from the lower income? Puts into play of like the historical and a lot of other factors. Thank you po.
Yeah, thank you also for the points on for this disaggregating the data set.
Yeah.
No, one of the also limitations that we had, no, in doing the surveys, that yung our issue of resources, no, we initially wanted to do a national survey, but because of our limitation of financial resources, we had to just choose, no, or to undertake, no, a survey with a limited set of respondents, just being comprised of those in the 6 cities. So we're glad that our Assistant Vice President for Research and Creative Work is here, Dr. June Aguilar. So maybe in the future we will put up a proposal no, that can allow us to do a broader survey. Sorry, Doc June, to put you on the spot.
Here will add one more.
Hello. To add lang on the Nika, no, on the correlation, I think yeah, it's definitely great nga to explore. But I think yeah, yung strength ng POD is that like it is a representative survey. So like parang we weighted already the income classes and parang the aggregate results are aggregated results of all the segments of the population. But definitely we do need to look at the correlations and establish those relationships. But yeah, the POD is like an yeah, representative survey.
Good point. Yes, ma'am.
Ako po si Tessam. Um, maybe just a short background. I was an activist and NGO worker for 23 years and also served in government for four presidents for 22 years. This is my question. Maraming salamat dun sa ginawang survey or results ng POD. One of the things that really struck me is that led me to this question and also comment. Lalo na yung 62% kay Duterte at saka 49% kay Marcos. As a martial law victim, as a former political detainee, I am both against Duterte and Marcos. So nakaka-disturb yung result na 62% and 49%. So do the results tell us now or tell me that we or ako mismo at the civil society organizations or NGOs or development workers or even people's organizations, do the results tell us that we have chosen weak strategies in the past? I'm one of the senior activists. Maybe most of you are so young here. But are you telling us now, or do the results tell us that we have chosen the weaker strategies in making our Filipinos understand or even internalize or practice democracy? I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I just want to feel more hopeful when I leave this forum.
Go ahead, Sir Carlo.
Hopeful ba? Hindi. No, I think the trend is clear. No, democratic backsliding is really happening worldwide and in the regions, and there may be multiple factors for it. One, I think we really need to confront ourselves as civil society, no? And I think there are more studies coming out, which I mentioned kanina po, no? Baka nga may disconnect talaga ang iniisip ng mga leaders with how we're connecting with the ground, because it's clear also that our bases are becoming weaker. Less and less people are associated with civil society democratic forces, no? I'm not saying there's also civil society anti-democratic forces, no? Nagkakaroon din yun ng ground, but within ourselves, we have to confront the reality that humihina talaga ang civil society, and it's felt. Maybe the other thing we need to think about, so that might be a question of strategy, that might be a question of imagination, that might be a question of whether we're actually connecting on the ground. Of course, there are other factors. For example, economic factors that are very big factor. Like for example, the labor sector has weakened. No, unionization is lower because of union busting, all kinds of I don't know. So may mga factors na ganun din, no, corporate. But maybe there's one other trend that I'd like to think about for us and in democracy. Maybe it's really idea called atomization. No, I think there is a strong social correlation between people's growing individualism and atomization and the decline of democracy, because people are not anymore connected to their communities. If 3 out of 10 only feel that they're part of their communities, how would you want to be participating in groups and democracy? So may trends na ganon, whether it be caught by social media, external forces, etc. But people are not congregating anymore to actually assert themselves in certain arenas, in community forces. And hindi ko alam kung kasalanan natin yon or kasalanan yun na the trends are just there. So I think we also need to look at the economic and social factors that are contributing to this kind of difficulty in organizing. I'm not saying that people are not organizing. I think people are feeling how hard it is to actually organize now. And I think the Asia Barometer survey also puts certain levels of things that we need to think about. One, there's a growing trend of disempowerment. Two, there is a growing trend that people cannot influence politics and cannot engage in politics. So I think all the trends seem to be against us, no? And now, if that's the data, what do we do next? Kami, wala rin kaming sagot, no? But we have to, wag tayo mag, ano, no? I think if we are reflexive and say defensive tayo, hindi nag-organize na kami, etc. Sinasabi ko, hindi talaga tayo ganun ka-effective, no? Especially the democratic forces. And we need to confront that reality if we want to move forward stronger.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, just to add lang, we have been in discussions, di ba, Carlo? And I think maybe in July, maybe the Participate Consortia would like to also discuss this to really see or to assess how effective really are our political education, civic education programs in the past. No, I think parang initially, I think when we had parang this discussion, di ba, parang we were talking about in our political and civic education programs, we start first with values. What are our core shared and common values? But it seems to be that people's as we also become more socially differentiated, di ba? Dati malaki lang talaga yung rich and poor divide, but now they're more and more becoming more socially distinguished economic groups. So even these values, no, are becoming also more differentiated. So yung question now is, where do we start now? Ang question in terms of this civic education. It has worked in the past, di ba? Maraming marami naman tayong ginawa civil society groups, yung ating Guapo versus Trapo campaign. Ano yan? It was effective in the past, but maybe now we have to rethink what is that. I think it still can also be yung what are our shared values or norms, but I think that's something that we will have to look at or look for. No? Maybe we also start with relationships, but so that's something that we need to also.
Thank you, but I just to emphasize, maganda yung call to action nyo, yung drive civic engagement beyond elections. We look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Actually, may isang slide dun, di ba, din, na in terms of levels of political participation, because of individualism or atomization, mostly they just are okay with just voting. Second to that is the dialogue. And I'd like to zoom in on that. The dialogues happening on our dinner table, in our group chats. I'm wondering of the quality of those dialogues are. Kasi nang-aaway, nang-bablock, kahit sariling pamilya, di ba? Sariling ano. So, I mean, these are the kinds of dialogues that should be healthy and meaningful, that moves our democracy forward, that moves the deliberative call to action, na parang dapat hindi yung nang-aaway lagi. To be honest, sorry, palaway din ako sa social media. Pero I reach out naman. Palaway ako in public, pero sa messenger, love na love namin each other. Diba? Ang dami kong inaway nung nano si Duterte. But I think we can move our democracy forward by looking at the kinds of discussions or discourse happening in school, in our dining tables, in coffee shops, diba? In group chats, nako yan, ang daming fake news dyan. So do we just turn a blind eye? Instead of, kung may marites na naglalagay ng fake news or disinformation. So I think that one. And then the last is the 4 out of 10 joining assemblies. Or really being part of this community where you hold our leaders accountable, where you listen to them. Ano bang ginawa mo? Ano bang performance mo? And I need to hold you accountable. So I think that is for me a very important slide to look at and unpack further, because doon natin makikita what people are actually doing in terms of appreciating our democracy further. So yun, we're down to our last question, and then I'll read the question from Zoom. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, good morning. Morning pa rin. Ayun. Hi, good morning. My name is Joseph Marzan. I'm from Daily Guardian. It's a regional newspaper based in Iloilo City. I just wanted to ask if there will be a continuation of this survey. Kasi one of the things that I observed is very limited yung scope nung survey. It doesn't include other urban centers such as Bacolod and Iloilo, of course, and like General Santos and other urban centers in the country. Kasi parang kung ganun lang yung representative, parang hindi, it doesn't speak for all urban Filipinos yet. So, are there plans to expand the scope of the survey?
Well, certainly the next phase of this project is to really, as many of you have pointed out, is to dig deeper into some of the issues here, because of course a survey is only useful just to provide some quick answers to some of the questions that we have. But of course, we want also in-depth answers also as well. So, for example, the question of why people are vulnerable to misinformation despite being aware of it. So we'll have to, and so that's why at least the plan of the consortium is to do more focus group discussions with certain groups, no? So with different groups. We are hoping that we can do another survey again in the future, but much of this really will depend on our partners on the ground. Diba? This is a national. This is not Metro Manila only. No, this is not here only, but hopefully, parang we will have more also academic institutions or civil society organizations interested in this study, and hopefully we can together, dig deeper into some of the issues that were raised in this study.
And if I may be allowed for another question,
Yeah.
just a very short question. Na-notice ko rin kanina na nag-present ng brown bag sessions with on the ground, no? Have there been any feedback from the participants that show that yung call to action natin is already being taken up?
I was in the Zamboanga parang discussion, and there were discussions on the implications really on how we teach civic education in classes. Parang there were questions about when we talk, maybe faculty, kasi we had faculty in attendance there. Maybe parang one point that came up is that maybe we shouldn't assume that our students actually know or have this preconceived notion of what democracy is. And we have to show it as shown here, no? Parang there should be some performative value, no, of democracy. No, it should be illustrated even further. So those are some of the implications, no, that were discussed in the Zamboanga Forum. I don't know ago in the Davao Forum or the Naga Forum.
In the Davao Forum, actually, what was highlighted was more on how we navigate internally, because even internally, we really have to do a number of things, and it's very challenging considering where we are located. So, although we also wanted to widen the civic engagement, but in what form? Probably that is also another question. How do we translate better the results as well, and how do we also engage other people? So I think both ways we want to do the actions in terms of the internal and also the external.
Dean, if I may add lang, no, because when I was looking at the K-12 curriculum, this was during the pandemic because I had a lot of time. So, nung tininan ko talaga yung buong for Civica and other itong mga natin, no, makabayan, a lot of the resource materials na kulang is really on the civic engagement, like yung how people see their state, their relationship with governments, branches, simple things such as branches of government. Nandun naman siya sa textbooks, no? But I think the textbooks are not enough. So, or baka kailangan tingnan talaga yung ano yung laman ng textbook to make sure that kung ano yung nakikita dito, ma-update din, no? Kasi sobrang luma na talaga ng mga nasa textbooks na content at hindi na siya alinsunod sa kung ano yung konteksto ng demokrasya ang gusto nating iparating sa mga estudyante. So yun lang yung slight comment ko, but I'm sure the evidence can be further unpacked to see ano talaga yung mga materials. Now that yung K-12 din is nag-ano rin naman, meron ding bagong K-12. Maybe that's worth looking into again. Baka mapakalimutan na naman. So yun. Okay, sir.
Wanted to ask the team, how do we access the results of the survey? Kasi para makita namin yung buong.
So, we'll be posting po the full top line report. So, even some of the graphs na hindi po na-share dito will also put in our website. Lahat naman po here, parang we can email also for the proper press release and also the full top line report.
I'll give you my card na lang later.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. And we will appreciate if you can also give us, if may, write up or article about it. So we appreciate people really amplifying all of these, no, in your respective spheres of influence. So my last question na lang, I think maybe just more of a call to action question siya. From Zoom, I think we're streaming live, ano, global. Syempre global yung streaming. So hi, this is Roden Boribor Sikal, Station Manager of Brigada News FM Naga. We truly appreciate the efforts being made by Ateneo, especially here in Naga City, Kamsur, to empower people about democracy, particularly during this election period. However, a large portion of the voting population remains unreached, especially those in far-flung barangays of the province, particularly in areas without access to any form of communication. In these places, traditional politicians thrive and many voters are easily misled. What steps can be taken to address this issue? In instances where far-flung voters are misled, what steps can be done to guide them better? And maybe we'll take it as a closing statement from our panel here. Who would like to start? The one with the microphone. Yes, go ahead, Ma'am.
That's really a challenge, no? But I think in terms of our engagement, we also are able to locate different networks, even in far-flung areas. So probably we'll have to find a way how to translate the results and how to do more civic engagement through our university community engagement processes.
Many of us belong to networks, and for example, Ateneo is part of course, the broader Catholic Educators Association of the Philippines. They've recently organized a network called the Catholic Social Science Teachers, which are also many of these members actually belong to small parochial schools. No? So we hope that we can also disseminate the results and also encourage them to undertake also discussions, no, on this line. No? If was as what you have said about yung mga books, di ba? Maybe our teachers can actually be the ones who will supplement, no, what's in that, no, and hopefully parang we don't end, no, as again, no, as I said, we don't end with these results, no. So as many of the discussions here show that we need to further dig deep, no, on the problems, on the issues, and also the possible responses, no, that we can undertake to address our democratic deficit.
Dr. Robin?
Actually, I'm not really sure what to say about how to propagate it, but to educate the Filipinos in the far flung. But what I'd say is that we need to clean up social media, really. We need to solve fake news. We need to solve misinformation. But at the same time, I was struck by the question earlier. Let me just respond to the issue of tactical and strategies, whether the activists made a mistake or for progressive groups. If you look at 2022, 2022, I think, based on our data, was a continuity election. What that means is that people supported Duterte, and the candidate who won and who will win at that time was the best representation of Duterte. So I guess the just to connect that to the issue of social media, I think there was no compelling counter narrative that emerged that would make people dissatisfied with the regime back then, right? I mean, there were individuals who did effectively speak, but it wasn't large scale, right? So yeah, I think we're still waiting for that very strong counter narrative that would compel people to think that things are not okay, because even the EJKs were supported, and as you can see with the data, things actually did not change a lot. Diba? This was an undercurrent previous to Duterte. In fact, it was just consolidated under Duterte, and so it's not just about how do we reach them, but also what is the message that we're really propagating.
Sir Carlo?
I think on my side, just 3 points. No, I think acknowledging the information asymmetry and how we consume information might be a very good point to start with everyone. No, parang I think when we say yung rural areas or urban areas, we really just need to figure out are we all getting the right information. I always tell, for example, when I go to localities, I tell the HEI, alam mo yung isang role nyo, magkwento kayo ng local candidate sa locality nyo. That's a simple service you can do as a HEI in your locality, no? Just to talk about candidates, for example, giving the right information. So I think information asymmetry, whether people are getting the same kinds of information, I think that's one of the things we have to confront. My second and third point are pretty connected about civic education. No? We often assume that a voter's education for 1 hour to 2 hours would change people's minds. That's nonsense. No? And I think we need to go long term. Parang we have to see and understand that civic education needs to be continually propagated and continued in terms of school. But we have two questions we have to ask. The what of civic education? Ano ba ang ituturo? Anong pedagogy gagamitin? Hindi pwedeng i-recycle lang yung dati. And I think for those organizations who are attached to their old modules, no, I think it's time to just let go of them, no, and just start, no. Let's start from where we are, no. The second is the how. I think yung mention ni, I don't know, about the question of DepEd. I think one of the things I heard is that you have people teaching civic education whose background is in biology, right? Whose background is in a science that is not connected to civic education. So the how mechanism is such an important thing because going around telling people to do political education in their classes, they will tell me nakakatakot yung usapan na yan. So even the ones who are supposedly going to create the spaces for people to have civic conversations and all of that, sila mismo takot. So I think feel ko kailangan mapag-usapan siya na teacher training, yung mechanisms for that. Medyo malaking problema siyang kailangan pag-isipan. So yun, I guess that's a big challenge for us. Thank you.
Okay. And on that note, positive ba yun? Positive naman. Call to action pa rin. Yes, so we have a bevy of actionable items that we can do individually and collectively. I think this is just a start of the conversation, more studies in the future, and I think more action needed. So with that, palakpakan po natin ang ating panel ngayon, Sir Salinda Thomas, Robin Michael Garcia, Carlo Abadines, and of course, Dean Philip Arnold Tuanyo. We're not done yet, may closing pa. Don't leave yet. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. You may return to your seats. So thank you so much to all our panelists, Sir Leon, for moderating, and our guests for your insightful and thoughtful questions. So to officially end our program, we'd like to call on a very important partner in this initiative as well. So to formally close our program, we invite Dr. Zarina A. Saloma Akpedonu, the Dean of Ateneo School of Social Sciences. Dean Bopip obtained her doctoral degree from sociology from the University of Bielefeld in Germany, her MA in population science from Peking University in China, and her research focuses mostly on knowledge mobilization in social development, the built environment, and responsible consumption and production to promote a problem-solving approach in social science engagement. So Dean Bopip, to officially close today's program, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Justice Antonio Carpio, among many identities and alumnus of the Ateneo de Manila and the School of Social Sciences, Dr. Benjamin Tolosa, Vice President for Mission Integration, Dr. Philip Arnold Tuanyo, Dean of the Ateneo School of Government, our panelists and also research partners, faculty, staff, students, our extra academic partners, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure to formally close the program and the launch of the Philippine Observatory on Democracy at a time when illiberal democracy, authoritarian democracy are increasingly being used as terms to describe certain realities in some parts of the world. This POD, this project, Observatory of Democracy, is a very good partnership among the 5 Ateneos, Ateneo de Cagayan, Ateneo de Davao, Ateneo de Manila, Ateneo de Naga, and Ateneo de Zamboanga. Our research group is housed at ASOG, but in Ateneo, for example, we have the John J. Carroll Institute for Church and Social Issues. We have Simbahang Lingkod Bayan also as partners. One important lesson that we have learned in our life, in the academe, in the university, is that, or even in government,
is that many of the shortcomings of past and current solutions for the many problems of the times are due to the absence or the lack of the social science perspective in the solutions. Now, with this partnership with government policy centers, scholars, and extra academic audiences, we are actually able to not only critique, not only analyze, but also to offer, or at least the possibility of offering practical results. As we know, in spaces where institutions are in varying form of maturity, such as in our country, and even in our own universities and organizations, our goal should be to not only offer a critique, but to offer solutions to solve a problem. This is also a very good partnership between the social sciences and government centers, because we have always been keeping up with the reality that we are becoming more interconnected. And so it's very important that the partnership is not only between different fields of knowledge, different epistemic communities, but also with and among different institutions and organizations in different regions. Because as we are keeping up with the reality of being more interconnected, the contextualization of universalisms is very important. Democracy is of universal interest, but context matters. We may be able to demonstrate and develop a global perspective by being part of the Observatory of Democracy managed by the International Association of Jesuit Universities. We are also increasingly orienting ourselves to not just this greater aggregation at the new level of aggregation globally, but learning about the impact of global developments locally. And so this is important why the survey. And we realize now that these are covering conflict areas, experiences in grassroots democracy. So there is also this transtemporal element because it's election time. How would people feel if it's not election coming up? So let me emphasize that this is just the initial, preliminary part of the work. The findings, more inferential statistics and analysis will be done by the group. More qualitative study to understand the numbers. And also, among ourselves, we have to think about science communication because we are going to share findings from science. This is a scientific study, random sampling. We took care of the sampling methodology. So the problem now, and it's just been coming up in the open forum, is science communication beyond dissemination. As scientists, as academicians, we always want to share knowledge, share data. So we always think about dissemination. But we are also not, well, because of the emphasis on dissemination, maybe we have stopped to think about listening to the experiences of people. So I think with this dissemination mentality and the listening mentality, we can come closer to understanding one another, coming up this communication of science, and be more hopeful about the future. So I hope that the project findings today, the initial project findings and the short time that we have this morning have been very insightful, will lead to richer understanding and more meaningful problem-solving action. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dean Bopip, for that wonderful closing, and thank you everyone for joining us today once again. Like Dean Bopip alluded to, on behalf of Ateneo School of Government and the POD Consortium, we thank everyone for your support, your insights, and your questions. Rest assured, we do these types of meaningful dialogues to directly inform the policy research that we do and to further sharpen the insights that we generate out of it. So the work of strengthening democracy doesn't end here. It continues in the spaces we create, the questions we continue to ask, and the actions we take beyond today. For POD, it's really just phase one. It's really about figuring out how do we interrogate and ask questions about democracy in the Philippines. Who do we ask these questions to? And what do we do when we find out what these questions and what the answers to the questions are? Phase two, hopefully, will be looking forward to a sharpened questionnaire, to sharpened insights, and through the continued research that the different institutions have already committed to doing the rest of this year. So thank you so much, everyone. We hope you stay engaged with this research. Like Misha alluded to, we will send the top line report, which just summarizes the headline findings of the survey for now. And we hope that we can stay connected as the different Ateneo institutions conduct their own more nuanced research in the future. And we organize these brown bags to share the results of those further discussions and further studies in the future. So this wouldn't be a Philippine event without a photo op. So we're kindly requesting the audience so Misha will guide us and direct us on how the photo op will go, but we request our panelists to please stand in front and the photo will be taken from here. And I believe the audience members, I think you can remain seated. Yeah.
Audience can remain seated. Thank you. So we'll just take the photo from here. Thank you, everyone. For the panel, just please stay here po. Tayo lang po. Aha, dito. Side na lang. Yes, apo, pwede. Doc Robin and Dean Randy, you can stay there. Dito na lang. Ay, sige, dito na lang po kayo. Aha. Okay.
Should I compress? Yes.
Capture ba? For the people on the left and the right side, can you compress to the center? Thank you, guys.
Ituro mo na sila para mabilis. No. Ano sila? Yes, so we're requesting the audience seated
Please
on
stay
the
in
right
the
and left.
center.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let's compress towards the center, please. Thank you so much.
Okay. Can you move closer to the left? To your right, sorry. Okay. Okay.
Do you want Celadine to stand down?
Here. We can have one on the right.
Upo na lang kayo. Upo na lang kayo. Para hindi matabunan. Yeah, just sit. Okay. Okay, this looks good. Yep, okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Cheese. Okay. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for attending, and we invite everyone for refreshments outside. Thank you so much.
Everyone, for all the participants, we have snacks outside. Feel free to grab snacks and stay outside. Thank